Welcome to Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Yvonne Wolf. Today, our special guest is first-time author Laura Botten. She is here with her first book titled A Recipe from Rome. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, Yvonne.
Well, Laura, tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Well, I've always been an avid reader, and writing a book was always on the bucket list, and I just never knew what to write about. But then one day in 2019, a friend who I hadn't seen in 15 years invited me out of the blue to go to Italy for a week, and I thought, okay, why not?
That sounds like a sign.
Exactly. You can't say no to that. So I went over there to Rome and to Florence, and we didn't spend too much time there. It was about a week, but it was enough to really learn the culture a little bit and taste the food, and it was culture shock. It's completely different from America. So when I came back, I thought, that would be a really good setting for a novel. And so that's how it got started. I kind of just started journaling about what we had done, what we had seen, where we went, and it just sort of spiraled from there.
Wow, that sounds like a creative exercise. Now
Yes.
Yeah, to take a stab at fiction, right? Is there any autobiographical information in this?
It started out more autobiographical, and it became more and more fictionalized as it went along. It started out really just as a journal of my experiences, and then with each draft and each revision, I realized I could really have a lot more creative freedom if I fictionalized it. It would make it more exciting
for me, right?
Yeah, and I'm also a very private person too, so I didn't necessarily want to write my whole life story, but it was just the perfect opportunity to create, to use something that I experienced and create something new from it. The places that the characters go and the things they experience are things that I saw and experienced, but the plot line is totally fiction.
I see. Well, so you said it was on your list of things you like to do. Were you always been writing before? I mean, have you written things?
I more reading than writing, but I did take some writing classes in college and things like that. But my first love actually is radio. So being in a TV studio is kind of like the other side of that coin. I have the broadcast bug in me. So I didn't necessarily want to become an author per se, but I've always been a creator. I've always been drawn to the arts. And so writing a book was just something I wanted to tackle one day. And finally I had an excuse to tackle it.
Well, I wonder, because your interest in broadcasting might make you a good listener.
I hope so.
Yeah. Would you say some of your dialogue is from listening?
That's a great question. Yes, dialogue was actually one of the hardest things for me to write at first. And I eventually started to learn the tricks of the trade, that each character has to have their own unique voice. Some people might use slang, some people might swear, some people might be very proper in their language. So I had to sort of tap into how people speak. A professor might speak one way, and somebody who's, a tween, for example, who's following the teeny bopper band, they're gonna say different things and different words and the hip slang. Yes. So that was one thing that I had to sort of tap into. Each character has to have their own unique voice, for sure.
Well, Laura, that sounds like a lot of research. Now, what kind of research resource, I say, you use for this book after coming back from the trip?
Yes, that's a great question. I did do a lot of kind of consulting the guidebooks that we got after we traveled through the different sites. We visited places like the Colosseum and the Sistine Chapel. In Florence, we saw the Statue of David. So there's a lot of history to those pieces of art and those monuments. So I did have to, school myself on the dates and everything, because that is woven in throughout the novel. And then as for the actual writing process, I had to kind of teach myself how to do that too, because the craft of writing is incredibly nuanced and complex. It's not as simple as just saying once upon a time and then the end. So there was a lot of research that I had to do along the way, both about the history of Italy and its culture, and also about the craft of writing.
Well, I think that you had such an iconic tour that would easily connect with the audience who's been to Rome.
I think so. I think if you've been to Rome or to Italy, this will make you feel like you're back there. And if you've never been, I hope it makes you feel like you want to go.
They're right. So, did you have a writers group to help you with the, pacing or the chapter organization?
I wish I did. I didn't have a writers group per se, but I did follow a lot of different author coaches and writing coaches who would provide weekly newsletters or online summits or even in-person summits.
There's a lot
about
of e-courses
writing
like that right now.
Yes.
So you've taken a course or two?
I've done a couple of different conferences and online summits, and it is super, super duper helpful because, like I said, writing is very complex. It's not simple. It took me a long time to write this.
Wow. See, that's amazing to know that so many. And this conference was in person or was
Yes,
it?
I went to a conference in Chicago. This was a few summers ago. And then I follow different authors and author coaches online, get on their newsletter list. A lot of them do these online summits for free, which is fantastic. Some of them are more on the affordable side. Some are free. And you can get all kinds of information about plot, character arc, how to incorporate setting, all that kind of stuff.
Incredible. That sounds like a great thing to share with our audience. Was there an unexpected difficulty?
Yes, I would say I did not expect how long it would take to write a recipe from Rome. I naively thought I could write it and publish it all within a year as a first-time author. So I learned that's not ideal.
You have a job, right?
I have a full-time job. So I was doing this on the side. I did most of the writing during the pandemic, actually. So there was a little more free time then. But still, it's a big endeavor. And it definitely took me a lot longer than a year. It took me about 3.5 years total to do the writing, the revising, then bringing the editor into the mix, then getting the cover designer, and then planning the launch of the book.
Okay.
So I was not expecting that.
All right, yeah, but you kept with it. I mean, because some people just say, well, just shelve it even longer.
I know of one writer who she spent, I believe, 10 years writing her first book, which I'm sure a lot of people have taken that long or maybe longer, especially if it's a new endeavor. You've never written a book before. You might not know what it entails. Yes. It takes a long time. So there were moments when I thought about giving up, but then I said to myself, what if I just work on it for 10 minutes? Just break it down into little pieces. Don't think about the whole mountain you have to climb. Just think about the next step you have to take. And then eventually you'll get to the end. Wow, so that's the approach I took.
That's a very wonderful point you made because 10 minutes, everybody has 10 minutes.
Yeah, you can find 10 minutes. You might not be able to find, a whole weekend dedicated to it, but 10 minutes here and there. And then usually those 10 minutes would grow into 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And before you know it, you've been working on your manuscript all night. So it was very helpful to break it down into little pieces.
And do you have family members who support you in this endeavor?
Oh, yes.
Or are they not interested?
My mom is my number one cheerleader. My mom is I joke that she's my publicist. She was spreading the word as soon as the book came out. So my mom is super duper supportive, as she always has been. And I have two brothers that are always been very supportive as well, and friends. So people were excited, I think, when it came out. I think maybe some people were surprised that I was putting out a book because, as I said, that's not my background. But everybody has been very supportive and has cheered me on.
Well, I can see how it keeps you going if every Thanksgiving dinner your mother is asking, where is this book? You
right. When's it coming out? When's it coming out? I learned that if you mention you're writing a book, people will automatically ask you, when's it coming out? And you might not know. You might be very far from the finish line yet. So now I'm working on something as well, but I'm not really telling many people because I know it's going to take a while. So
let's go with your process. You say you had to find a cover. Did you go to a graphic artist, or how do you shop for someone like that?
For my cover designer, I contacted somebody that I'm connected with on Instagram because I do a lot of my book marketing on my Instagram page. And she released a couple of books, and I loved her covers. They were fantastic. So all I did was ask her, who did you use? And she told me. And it's a company based in New Zealand, actually. And I reached out to them to get more information, and they did a few mock-ups for me, and I fell in love with the first one that they came up with, and I hired them because they just nailed it. The only tip that I had for them before they started designing it was, can we have the title written in spaghetti? And they did it, and they knocked it out of the park. So I loved it. So I was very happy with my designer.
So that was your idea, not like say
yes, the spaghetti letters were my idea, but they did everything else. They put the birds flying in the background. They had the golden hour lighting, and St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah, warm look to it.
Yes,
so now, I would wonder, maybe this is just a simple question, but paying someone in New Zealand, is it just a PayPal process now? It's just so simple.
So simple now. Right? It's kind of crazy how you can pay somebody in another country and it's just no big deal. Just a credit card.
You don't have to wire money, right?
No, it was super simple. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see how the new age of writing, you can hire someone across the world, right?
Yeah, and editors too. My editor actually lives in Italy, which was super helpful for this particular book because it takes place in Italy. Yes. So she helped me with some of the language references because there is an Italian-speaking character in the book. Oh. I am not a native Italian speaker, so I needed help with that. And she helped with making sure the cultural references were accurate, some of the food references were accurate, because I was coming at this from an American tourist perspective. Yes, and I didn't want it to be cheesy and I mean, it's cheesy, but in the Parmesan sense. So she helped me to really make sure the cultural references were accurate. She was invaluable. Her name is Vivian Williams, and she has lived in Italy, I think, for 10 years. So she was the perfect editor for this book.
Wow, it sounds like you found the perfect, let's say, expert, right?
I would agree.
The subject expert, because sometimes, right, I heard about movies being made, like all the scientific movies or math-related movies, and they actually have to find experts to write all the equations on the chalk.
Exactly.
Right? So you have found.
And that helps to bring some authenticity to the story because the audience might not know, but there's something about them being able to trust that the directors or the writers, have it correct. Yes. So you want it to be authentic and accurate, and that makes a huge difference in the quality of the product.
That's a great endeavor. How have you been, I guess, marketing the book? Like you mentioned Instagram. Do you have a website? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I have a website. It's just my name, laurabotten.com. And I have my Instagram page, which is just @laura.botten. And I post a lot of, when I was writing it, I was posting writing updates, and I was posting a lot of videos and photos from my trip to get people excited about the setting of the book. And then the cover itself is my best marketing tool, I think, because I was so happy with how it turned out. And I've heard from people that they bought my book just based on the cover alone.
Very
they see that fork with the spaghetti on it. It's a very unique cover. So that's one of my marketing tools. And another thing that I have done is do some in-person book signings. I've been at the Glenview Public Library a couple of times. I'll be at the Northbrook Public Library, I believe it's in April this year, to do a signing. And I've also partnered with a couple of animal shelters, believe it or not. The main character in the book has a cat, and the cat is modeled after a cat that I used to have that I adopted from a local animal shelter, Heartland Animal Shelter in Wheeling. And so every now and then I'll partner with those shelters, and a portion of the proceeds will go to the shelter, and that sort of spreads the word a little bit too.
Oh, that sounds like a great partnership.
I'm a huge animal lover, so it just made sense.
Bring it on, right?
Exactly.
So let me know about the reader responses. Have you got some reviews perhaps on Amazon or?
Yes, I've got some reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, which it's always a little nerve-wracking when a review comes in, but for the most part, people have been so supportive and so excited about it. A lot of readers have said it makes them feel like they're back in Italy or that they want to go to Italy. A lot of readers have also said it makes them hungry because there are some recipes included at the end of the book. There's 5 recipes that are Italian inspired, and the main character has a podcast and she does restaurant reviews. So throughout the course of the book, April Appleby is the character's name. She'll go to different Italian restaurants and then she'll, review the restaurant for her podcast. And so there's descriptions of food in there. I love Italian food.
I can
love
tell.
Italian food.
And so, this was, your love for Italian food, was it before or after?
Oh, yes.
Okay, before.
It was before, and now it's just even more so.
Exponentially grew.
Exactly.
Right? Well, I think those are very, modern or contemporary characters. Right?
Yes,
That
it's
people
contemporary.
People have podcasts. I mean, we know so many people who host their own shows, right?
Exactly.
And such a great job to just be reviewing foods, right?
I would love that job. If you know of anything, let me know.
Yes, I think that's a great place to be. Well, Laura, what did you learn about yourself through this process? Because 3.5 years, it gives you something to think about, right?
I agree, and it's a long time to do some self-reflection and to explore what you're capable of. I learned a lot of different things about myself. One thing is just that I was able to achieve something kind of monumental. The writing process was daunting. The editing process was daunting, as was the revision process, but I did it. I achieved it. I had help along the way, but I learned that I was able to achieve something that was on the bucket list that I thought probably wouldn't ever happen, actually happened if you just put in the work. And another thing that I learned was just facing my fears. I do not like to fly, so flying over an ocean was petrifying, basically, but I did it and I was fine. And even something like cooking. I love Italian cuisine, but I never really cooked well. But one of the things we did out there in Rome was take a cooking class at a winery, which was super fun, amazing views. And I learned that it was actually pretty simple to cook a meal. And that inspired me to, not be so scared or doubt myself about something as simple as cooking and just give it a go. So when I came back home, I really started to buy all these different cookbooks and try to, throw a good meal together. And I learned I can do that. It's not that hard.
Wow, Laura, it sounds like your 1-week trip helped you grow about 5 years, right? So,
I think so.
So that's incredible because cooking can be very daunting. It's the first part really of your real life by yourself, right?
I agree. It's another type of creation too, so you don't want to mess it up. You want, especially if you're cooking for someone or for a friend or for a party, you want to make sure that people are going to like what you make and they like how it tastes and everything. And it's a little scary, it's a little daunting, but if you just follow the recipe and just start simple, it's no big deal.
Well, what is your Glenview connection? Because, I heard that you grew up in Glenview.
That's correct, Yvonne. I did grow up in Glenview. I went to school at St. Catherine La Brea, and then I went to Glenbrook South. My grandma always lived in Glenview, so my brothers and I kind of grew up at her house. We spent a lot of time at Grandma's house. We would go there after school. Summers were, spent at Grandma's house. My mom still lives in Glenview, so I'm always in the area. Of course, there's the dairy bar, too. I love the dairy bar. And fun connection here. My uncle used to volunteer right here at Glenview TV in the 90s.
Really?
So I've probably been in this studio before a long, long, long time ago. So that's a fun connection to Glenview.
That is. Now, being a volunteer is a very big part of Glenview, I would say. I think Glenview has a very strong volunteerism in this
I agree
community.
with you, definitely. It has a strong sense of community, and I always love just trotting down, Glenview Road through the downtown area. Sometimes don't have a downtown, but Glenview's downtown really feels like a downtown.
Now it feels like there's a couple downtowns.
It does, true.
But the train station is where it was always been.
Yep, the hub.
Yes. Now, so let me know what you would say to encourage other authors.
I would say just go for it. Don't give up, and know that, there might be moments where you feel like throwing in the towel, but just like I said earlier, break it down into smaller steps because it is a very big project. It's going to take a lot of time. But if you can find 10 minutes a day or even just, maybe 20 minutes on the weekends or something, if you can make it a consistent part of your day, you'll get there. You just have to do it step by step. And don't be afraid to bring in an editor or a beta reader to give feedback because as soon as I hired my editor, that's when it really blew up in a good way. She opened up a lot of different doors, shared a lot of ideas, and that's when the creativity really started to spur. So just go for it. Don't be shy. Try to make 10 minutes a day and find somebody who you can collaborate with who believes in your story.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of great ideas. And Laura, you have something for the future, you said. You might
Yes,
You're
hopefully.
working on it,
Early
but keeping it
stages.
quiet.
Early stages. I am working on another book. I didn't know if I was going to or not because, as I said, this one took 3.5 years. It was a lot of work, but it was a passion project. It was exciting. I like to create things. So I started to write my next book just before this one came out, and it's sort of a mess right now, but I'm in that creative, messy process, and
right. The
might be a
beginning.
few more years, but I'm trying it again.
Yes, the beginning, it can always look like when you open a puzzle.
Oh, exactly. There's all these little pieces, and you just have to fit them together. And it might take some time, but once it starts to come together, you get really excited, and then before you know it, it's finished.
Well, Laura, when you are done, we will love to have you back.
I would love to be back. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Yvonne. It was great to talk to you.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.